The Free Gaza movement succeeded in sending 4 successful boat trips into the Gaza Strip, and then every boat after that has been thwarted. The boat in December 30th that Cynthia McKinney was on, who was once a congresswoman from Georgia, and in the last presidential election, she ran for president for the Green Party. She was on the boat on the 30th of December, and that boat was rammed 3 times by Israeli warships off the coast of Lebanon. The boats weren't, the Free Gaza boat that was called the Dignity was not even off the coast of Israel, much less off the coast of Gaza. It was in international waters off the coast of Lebanon, and it was attacked 90 miles away from Gaza. And the next 2 boats couldn't get in. One boat was surrounded by warships, and the captain finally made the decision to return back to Cyprus. And the boat after that was trying to get into Gaza from all the way down to the south instead of from the north, entering from the north of the Gaza Strip. And it was arrested at sea, dragged to Ashdod, and everybody, all the passengers and all the crew were arrested and put in jail. Some for longer time, some for shorter time. So people can't get in. But Israel has also expelled in that way many Palestinians. They have, of course, the biggest number of Palestinians were in 1948 and again in 1967, creating thousands of refugees all at once. But over time, there's always new refugees created because Israel goes in and confiscates people's homes and land, demolishes their home, takes away their residency card. Palestinians living in East Jerusalem are kind of like an extra special targeted people, and they don't have citizenship. They have residency rights, and those rights are, the rules regarding those rights are constantly being changed, constantly. So a Palestinian can unknowingly lose his residency right to live in his own house on his own land that's been in his family for decades, if not thousands of years, and the Israelis can take away that card from him or her. He then loses his so-called right to live in his own house. Then a Zionist Jewish Israeli family comes in and takes over his house, and that's it. But it's like many people in the United States experience occupied Palestine here inside the United States. A little bit different situation, but on other aspects, it's very similar.
I talk about the kindness, the love, the generosity, the hospitality, the sense of humor, the resilience, and that's what I talk about when I talk about Palestine and the Palestinians. And I mean, that's what's so memorable for me is that. And that people greet you with a smile. I mean, you know, my sister and I protest in downtown San Jose on a weekly basis. And what astounds me is, you know, here in California, in Silicon Valley, when mostly people have a very good lifestyle, and what, you know, the anger and hatred that comes out of people's mouths is really amazing. And kill them all, nuke them all, and you don't get that from the Palestinians. And so many Palestinians would come and say, every time I've been there, you know, we need to learn to live together in peace, because they know it's, you know, Israel's not going away, although I don't think it has a right to exist. And I think it's horrendous that that established. And as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't have a right to exist. It's Palestine. It's occupied Palestine. And I know that, you know, Jews are going to probably stay there, but that it needs to be that it's, I'm not a nationalist. And I think people should be able to live wherever they want, especially in this globalization world where corporations have the lay of the land. So if that's going to be so, then people should get to live wherever they want. But it needs to be that everyone has a right to, you know, an education and healthy food and good jobs and health care and that kind of thing. And there should be some people are, you know, have more rights than others. So if all the UN resolutions were being followed, there wouldn't be any issue in that area right now in Palestine, because the UN resolutions, Israel signed 194, which allowed them into the UN, and that's what, went along with establishing Israel as a state, and that guaranteed the Palestinians' right to return to their historic homes, and the people that didn't want to return, it gave them the right to be compensated for the losses. And then there's so many other UN resolutions that have passed, and there would be so many more if the United States didn't have the ability to veto. So if the United Nations actually worked the way it was meant to work, the world would be a much different place, I think, and be a very different situation in Palestine. And I consider it occupied Palestine. When I would go out on the boats, the fishermen would have a smile on their face, and one of the things that, besides being shot at by the Navy, the Navy also had this thing called the water cannon, and it had the capability of shooting very high pressured water. So if you think of the United States and the civil rights movement with the fire hoses, that's the kind of thing that they were using on this boat. So it's very dangerous when you think of being on a boat and being fired at with this very high-powered water. It would damage the boats, it would injure people. So anyway, knowing that you're going to have that every day, either being shot at or having the water cannon, and the water cannon would hit the boat for 20, 30 minutes at a time. And they would try to flood the engine room. It was just really, really devastating. And in the summertime, to get hit by the cold water, it wasn't too bad. But they would wait. Sometimes they'd come back in the night, because the fishermen, they would go out and fish all day and all night and then come back the next morning. They work really, really, really hard. So to know that they're going to have wet clothes on all night long, or when it gets colder in the wintertime and they get hit by that cold water, it's just really devastating. So, but knowing that's what they're going to face every day, and yet they go out and they have a smile on their face, and they're willing, they're happy and joking and enjoying life. And when we went out and worked with the olive harvest, they sang all day long about freedom and the earth and the land. And just to hear that is just truly awesome, that they really, enjoy life. And that no matter what Israel does, Israel's not going to take that away from the Palestinians. They're going to enjoy life. They're going to be resilient and have a good spirit and have a sense of humor. And it's a true lesson to see that, because I know I get upset when I get red lights when I'm driving down the street. So to see that people who were so oppressed and to see that sense of humor. Anyway, so basically the what I wanted to get out of the first time I went was to see for myself, to see what was really going on.
I mean, I guess I learned a lot of things. I think it's also just, I mean, as the first time I was going to Palestine, we were crossing the Rafah crossing, bombs were dropping. I mean, just things like that. Like the first time that you hear bombs falling, the first time that you see a kid with their leg blown off, it's not exactly, I'm not sure learning is the first word that you think of for these things, but it's sort of this type of violence is a very certain type of injustice that it's hard not to respond to on whatever level that you can, whatever level you're coming to do something about it, I guess. And there are a lot of things like that that continue to happen every day that now I'm aware of it. And the more that you get involved in activism or in service, the more that you realize how complicated it is and how bad it is and how difficult it is to make change. But the more, it's also at the same time, the more you realize that you have to, I guess.